こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、トッテナムホットスパーへ移籍が決まった、高井幸大の完全ガイドの後編です。ベンバンマンというスパーズファンのチャンネルでは、この無名の20歳の日本人プレイヤーをできる限り調査した上で、高井の強みと弱みなどの特徴をできる限り上げつつ、ホットスパーのスカッドの中で、特にこのシーズンでどのように使われるかという話をしています。この後編では特に、高井幸大の弱点と思われる点や、同じ若手センターバックのブスコビッチとの比較をしています。実際にどのように話しているのか、チェックしてみましょう。
It's difficult when you're doing these kind of videos when it's a fairly unknown player. When you watch compilations and watch highlights packages, you're not going to see some of the bad bits. But one thing in terms of his weaknesses that I've, from articles and threads that I've read on Twitter, is that sometimes that passing range and decision making under pressure. That was something that I took from a Twitter thread from, I think, a Japanese football fan. He does tend to keep things simple, which isn't bad. I'll credit the Twitter thread. I think it's from Takunda, who's obviously watched a hell of a lot of him. I'll put the link to that thread in the description. And like I said, through watching the analysis, he doesn't tend to break lines. Keeps it simple a lot of the time. Sometimes he can get himself into a little bit of trouble under pressure. And again, sometimes that comes with the territory of being a bigger centre half with a bit more of a rigid frame. But again, these things you can under different coaches at a different level, maybe you can kind of coach that out of a player like that, or find a way to amplify their strengths and not expose him so much. If those are his weaknesses. Again, it's just about decision-making sometimes when playing out from the back. And I think another weakness is here of his, which is something we already spoke about, which is something that people have highlighted as well, is obviously that pace. There will be some forwards in the Premier League that will get him into trouble over time. A little bit like Van der Ven, to be honest. Van der Ven is the opposite. Van der Ven is quick, but sometimes when you are that kind of tall, it's difficult to move your hips and kind of, if you get turned by a player, even if you have got that pace, you can be in trouble. We saw that against Isak for Newcastle. So if a striker does change direction quickly, or if he's coming up against a tricky winger, maybe defending wide channels, then he might struggle a little bit. But again, under pressure, you can see him here, happy to go back inside, hold that defender off, and he has got that big frame to be able to push defenders away and then turn away. And again, the composure is something we also, despite if you look at his heat map for the season, he does venture forward occasionally, but again, I think that's probably more from his aggressive nature of stepping up to win the ball back. You can see a lot of play over the halfway line there. But when he does step up into the final third, this is what I love, this little clip here. This is kind of Romero-esque. And again, if you do want your centre-half to step up, if you are playing against a team that is quite settled in their block, this is lovely. Little pass into him. You can see the defender or the midfielder goes to press him, totally commits. And just that little feint is absolutely gorgeous, just to open up the play and then play it wide for that cross into the box. Look at the space that's left for them, the space for the fullback or the winger that goes to cross that. I'm not 100% sure. In terms of his recovery ability, like I said, that pace is an area which he might struggle. But again, he's not bad. Here, gets back, makes a really strong tackle in this example. To be fair, I think that one thing I would say about this is that when you actually watch the full clip, the striker does hesitate quite a bit over the length of time he takes to shoot. But he is able to get back and make the recovery. Again here, good sliding tackle. He likes a sliding tackle. He's very, very aggressive. Like I said, and again here, another good example. And finally, before we come on to the Al Nassr game, defending those wide channels. Again, ideally, I think you'd want him... I think, personally, with someone like Takai, when you assess these strengths and weaknesses, that aerial ability in both box, or certainly from a defensive point of view, which we're going to come on to with the Al Nassr game, very, very good in the air, very dominant, very physically dominant. With that lack of pace, although from some of these examples, he's decent at defending the wide channels. Again, you can see him here, aggressive, stepping up, making that sliding tackle, getting out there, again, using that strength at times. It's not a massive issue. But I think he'd probably be more suited to, if Spurs were going to play a back three under Frank at times, that central role, or maybe with a more defensive-minded fullback alongside him in a back four. But again, I don't think it's going to be a massive, massive issue, that lack of pace. Bearing in mind, there is going to be more protection in front of Takai with that probably what is more likely to be a pivot in front of him in defence. And again, he's always going to get help playing out from the back. One thing we know about Frank is that those pivot players both like to drop in to offer a lot of passing options. And again, they're not going to leave him too exposed on transition. And if he is partnered with a defender like Van der Ven alongside him, again, that allows Takai more license to step up. Or Vuskovic, who is someone who is a little bit more quicker on the recovery. But profile's quite similar to Luka Vuskovic, actually, I would say. He's he's in terms of the stats, he stacks up pretty similar. Vuskovic, like I said, a bit more like Kevin Danso. He's a bit more of that carrier, driver. Nathan Collins at Brentford was like that a lot. Likes to break the lines through driving forward. You can see Vuskovic blows him out the water in terms of that. Doesn't like to get forward too often, Takai, as we said earlier. Both quite similar in terms of aerial win percentage. Both quite similar in terms of duel percentage. Defensive actions, Takai ranks higher. Again, Vuskovic, a bit more of that kind of ball playing or forward-thinking defender, despite the fact that Takai has a higher pass percentage completion than him, likes to hit the ball forward. He's more of a line breaker, but Vuskovic likes to drive that ball forward. Takai more progressive in his passing, and he's more of an aggressive defender than Vuskovic. But again, the aerial duels and the aerial duels and ground duels stack up quite similarly. Again, both physical kind of freaks. Vuskovic, I think, maybe slightly taller, but again, to have two profiles like this with a lot of upside, a lot of potential is really, really good in the squad. Now, let's go on to this game against Al Nassr, because I think it all kind of comes together for him quite nicely here in this game. Again, like I said, strong opposition. This is the AFC Champions League final. So, again, in relative terms, a big game. And again, we've signed younger players like Lucas Bergvall, Pat Matassar, Min Hyuk Yang over the last few years that haven't played in games against this quality of opposition with this amount of pressure. And again, it's Ronaldo at the end of his career. It's Mane after moving away from Liverpool. John Duran, though, very big handful of a striker in the Premier League. So he knows what it's like to play under pressure. He's played for Japan at the Olympics. That's very, very big. Played for Japan's senior team as well. More experience at an international level than the likes of Yang and Bergvall before they came in, which will stand him in good stead. And again, I do think one thing that slightly irritates me is that, especially it happens quite a lot when we sign players from Asia, it tends to get the whole club signing, shirt sales kind of deal. It's just like these players wouldn't be being bought in. We went through this with Yang last summer. They might not all burst into excellent players. They might not all kind of fruitfully develop at Tottenham and become world beaters, but I think Spurs are signing players that they feel have the potential to do that. It's not always going to go right. Spurs need to add more experience into the squad, but when you look at the squad, that is not an area, centre-half is not an area where we necessarily need that experience. So I think this signing makes a lot of sense for planning forward. Someone that can play on that left-hand side as well. I think it does make sense. And I think people that are kind of writing it off straight off the bat, it's quite lazy, to be honest. I don't really like it that much. But again, good experience at a young age, playing a game of this magnitude. Up against Ronaldo here, aggressive, again, into him, wins that ball off him. You can see him stepping up from that defensive line. Here, let me just move this across. Again, here you can see his aggression and that ability to drive forward on the ball. Again, Vuskovic kind of blows him out the water in terms of the stats, but he will like to do it at times. Steps up. And again, this is one thing I do like about Takai, and I think it's something that we're going to see quite a lot under Frank as well. You can see in front of the line there of Mane, Brozovic in midfield as well. Again, these are good players. You can see he's got two midfielders kind of coming towards him. And that then draws Mane Brozovic a little bit further forward, so we can just dink that little pass in behind over the top to the striker, who can chest it down and then can turn and go. Brentford did this quite a lot last year, those two pivot players dropping in, which means you can either nip play through the thirds by playing out from the back, or it means you're dragging players onto you. That means there's more space for your attacking players, playing that ball over the top. I think it's quite important that Takai has this sort of clipped little pass into the striker in his locker. Again here, that aerial ability in both boxes, aerial monster, you can see there, flicks it away. Up against Ronaldo, tight in the channel, helping him out. Again, aggressive against John Duran here, comes away with the ball, drives forward with it. And again, like I said, Vuskovic blows him out of the water in terms of those carrying numbers, but he wants to get forward at times. Little 1-2, and look at him driving here. Little bit of a nosebleed, poor decision making, should have passed it. But again, you kind of learn as you go. Mane here, good defensive work in the channel up against a tricky winger. Long throw comes in, heads away. Ball comes in, he gets there before Duran, leaves Duran on the floor there, and they're able to play out. Another cross comes in, up against Ronaldo, who, again, is 40, obviously, now, but one of the best aerial duel winners in the game. Ronaldo, the hang time in the air. Takai beats him there. Not quite sure what's happened with the image there, but again, getting in there before Ronaldo. This is a big deal for Takai. Again, here, let me just move this example across so you can just see the full picture. There we go. You can see here, composure on the ball, waits for the press, then he breaks the line, little flip around the corner. Not a massive line breaker in terms of his passing, prefers to go long, but he has got it in the locker as well. Again here, the reading of the game, cross comes in, he's in there to intercept it, drives forward, and then offers a passing option as well. Crossing coming in, again heading it away, bread and butter. And then from that same move, it goes out to the winger, gets a shot, he gets the block. Again here, against Duran, you can see Al Nassr kind of building here. Mane looking for that pass into Duran, who is so good, we know is so good at pinning his defender. We saw that in the Premier League, and Takai just stands up to him and says no, leaves him on the floor, gets there first. So, look, it's £5 million. I think this deal could end up being a bargain at some point in the future. You don't want to put too much pressure on it, but I think this is a smart bit of business. Spurs are clearly trying to go down the route of recruiting these youngsters with a lot of potential, and I think that is what you have to do, as well as balancing that with proven quality in the squad as well. And hopefully with the other players that we're going to look at bringing in this summer, in midfield, in attack, we do that, because we brought a lot of young players in. There's a lot of potential already at the club when you go through it with the likes of Bergvall, Sarr, Gray in midfield. That's very young. Obviously, there's a lot of potential still in the likes of Johnson, Odebear, Tell, Jamie Donnelly, etc. There's a lot of youngsters there, and we do need to add proven quality to it, but it's about finding that balance. And part of that balance is picking up these kind of players for very good fees that you feel like can be turned into really, really strong, solid players. And if Kota Takai goes on to become a player that makes 20 appearances a season, 25 appearances a season, rotation option, and then you sell him for profit down the line, those sometimes, that's what happens. Or he goes out on loan and then it doesn't quite work out, and then you sell him. At Spurs, it doesn't quite work out. These things happen. You have to kind of make these deals in football sometimes, and I'm quite glad that Spurs have gone down this path of doing it, because our track record of bringing in these youngsters so far under Johan Lang has been pretty good, so I trust in it. Let me know what you thought of the video. Let me know what you think of Kota Takai, and I'll see you in the next video. Nice one. Up Spurs. Make sure to subscribe as well.
こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、トッテナムホットスパーへ移籍が決まった、高井幸太の完全ガイドの後編です。ベン・バンマンというスパーズファンのチャンネルでは、この無名の20歳の日本人プレイヤーをできる限り調査した上で、高井の強みと弱みなどの特徴をできる限り上げつつ、ホットスパーのスカッドの中で、特にこのシーズンでどのように使われるかという話をしています。この後編では特に、高井幸太の弱点と思われる点や、同じ若手センターバックのブスコビッチとの比較をしています。実際にどのように話しているのか、チェックしてみましょう。
You can see Vuskovic blows him out the water in terms of that.
ブローサムワンアウトオブザウォーターは、相手を完全に打ち負かすという意味で、もともとは軍艦が敵艦を爆破するイメージから来ています。とても強烈な表現で、比較にならないほど圧倒するや、ぶっちぎりで勝つといったニュアンスがあります。スポーツの試合、製品競争、ディベートなど、勝敗や優劣が問われる場面でよく使われます。特に、予想以上に圧勝する場面で使われることが多いので、ニュースやビジネスの英語にも登場します。
You can see Vuskovic blows him out the water in terms that. You can see Vuskovic blows him out the water in terms that, which will stand him in good stead.
スタンドイングッドステドは、何かが将来にわたって自分を助けてくれるや、良い結果をもたらす時に使われる表現です。特に、経験やスキルが後々有利に働くという文脈でよく使われ、例えば、学生時代に身につけたプレゼン力が、社会人になって会議で役立つようなイメージです。とてもポジティブでフォーマルな言い回しです。
Which will stand him in good stead. Which will stand him in good stead. They might not all kind of fruitfully develop at Tottenham.
フルートフリは、実り多くや成果を上げてといった意味を持つ副詞で、特に会議、コラボレーション、努力の成果などに使われます。フルーツから派生した言葉であり、比喩的に成果を意味します。例えば、フルートフリに議論したといえば、建設的に問題を話し合ったという意味になり、ただ話しただけでなく、成果のある話し合いが行われたことを強調できます。フォーマルで前向きなニュアンスがあるので、ビジネス英語でも非常に役立ちます。
They might not all kind of fruitfully develop at Tottenham. They might not all kind of fruitfully develop at Tottenham. A little bit of a nosebleed, poor decision making.
ノーズブリートはもともと鼻血を意味する単語ですが、口語では比喩的にすごく高い場所や異常に高い価格などの意味でも使われます。例えば、ノーズブリートシーツといえば、スポーツスタジアムやコンサート会場で一番上の遠い席のことを指します。これは高すぎて鼻血が出そうという冗談から来た表現で、また株価や家賃などが異常に高い場合にも使われます。少しユーモラスな響きがあるため、日常会話やネットスラングでもよく使われます。
Little bit of a nosebleed, poor decision making. Little bit of a nosebleed, poor decision making. Again, heading it away, bread and butter.
ブレッド&バターは直訳すると パンとバターですが、英語では、生活の糧や、最も基本的で大切なものという比喩として使われます。これがないと生活できないものや、その仕事の中核となるものを指すときによく使われ、ビジネスやニュースでも頻出します。英語らしい比喩なので、単語だけでなく文脈でしっかり理解することが大切です。
Again, heading it away, bread and butter. Again, heading it away, bread and butter. And then you sell him for profit down the line.
ダウンザラインは、アメリカ英語を中心に非常によく使われるカジュアルな言い回しで、将来のある時点でや、そのうちといった意味を持ちます。ビジネス、日常会話、スポーツ解説など幅広い場面で使われます。例えば、それは後で対処するという場合のように、今ではないけどいずれというニュアンスを伝えることができます。未来の流れを示す比喩表現として覚えると使いやすいです。
And then you sell him for profit down the line. And then you sell him for profit down the line. Nice one. Up Spurs, mate.
アウトは英語の窃盗時の中でも特に便利で、非常に多くの動詞と組み合わせて、何かを上回るや、何かより優れているという意味を作り出すことができます。例えば、アウトパフォームで、上回る。アウトスマートで、知恵で勝るというように、比較のニュアンスが強いです。この窃盗時は、トイックやビジネス英語でも頻繁に登場し、自分で語彙を増やすときにも応用しやすいので覚えておくととても便利です。アウトスパーズは、スパーズらしい負け方ややらかしという、長年のサポーターや他チームファンが皮肉交じりに使うネット文化的表現であり、ここではさらに逆説的に、スパーズ以上にスパーズしたと、称賛的に使われている表現のようです。
Nice one. Up Spurs. Nice one. Up Spurs, mate.
いかがでしたか？高井幸太の弱点を探すのは、ハイライトや切り抜きのような動画からは難しいと言いつつ、不安な点があるとすれば、やはりスピードが遅いわけではないものの、プレミアのモンスターのようなスピードについていけるのか、プレッシャーの中でプレーの正確性が落ちないのか、という点だったかなと思います。それでも基本的には落ち着いたプレーをしていることも理解しており、周りの選手と助け合いながら守ることができれば、今の高井でも大きな問題にはならないだろうとも話しつつ、年間20試合から25試合出れるようになれば、という期待もしています。実際に、ロナウド相手にも空中戦で勝てていた事実と映像からも、プレミアでも通用すると期待するのはおかしな話でもなく、実際にどれだけ通用するのかをドキドキしながら見るのが、すでに楽しみです。ハーランドをケチョンケチョンにしたいとも話す高井が、どのようにプレーするのか、どのように成長していくのか、基本的には、二次情報を扱うこのチャンネルですが、ニュースやファンの反応を通して、今後もお伝えしていきたいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。